Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. We want to welcome our friends in South Africa, the United States, and around the world to this week's edition of A Conversation with El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan. I'm pleased to be your host, coming to you once again through the Salam Media platform out of Johannesburg, South Africa. Salam Media is an online portal for humanitarian journalism. We don't just report the news. We advise you on what you can do about it. Today's broadcast is coming to you with your host, El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan, being, I'm in a hotel room in Raleigh, North Carolina. This evening, I am scheduled to deliver some remarks at a large and very beautiful center. My home away from home in this part of North Carolina. I haven't been here in a bit, and I'm looking forward to addressing my brothers and sisters at the Islamic Association of Raleigh on some very, very important and challenging issues. And then, alhamdulillah, being able to take advantage of the knowledge and the insights of a dear brother and friend of mine, Sheikh Hisham Sarsour. But again, I'm coming to you from a hotel room. This is not the usual venue. But nevertheless, we have a thought-provoking broadcast lined up for today with two very special guests. These are guests from out of South Africa, where this weekly broadcast originates from, Salam Media. And it's really an honor for me to be able to introduce these two guests to our audience. Two guests that were recommended to us by one of the executives of Salam Media when I requested South Africans that I could have a conversation with on some, challenging issues. Our focus for today is on anti-apartheid South Africa in the line of fire. Anti-apartheid South Africa in the line of fire. And so we wanted to have South Africans for this conversation. And we have two very good guests that were recommended to us. Both are first timers. So I want to say something about them both. Kim Heller is a writer, political strategist, media, and socioeconomic development specialist. Her writings on the lack of social and economic transformation and justice in South Africa have been published locally and internationally. Her first book, No White Lies: Black Politics and White Power in South Africa, was on the exclusive books bestseller list for local nonfiction in 2021. Kim has held several high-level strategic communication roles within the media and corporate sector. A former deputy secretary of the EFF in Gauteng, Kim is no longer affiliated with any political party, but continues to advocate for social and economic justice in South Africa. She is currently busy with a second book on the lack of transformation in democratic South Africa and the persistence of white power and privilege, which will be published in 2025. Our brother Tahir Maepa, a well-known and respected union leader, is the public service and Commercial Union Secretary General. And what I'd like for our brother to do when he comes on board is to share with us some of what he does as the Secretary General of this organization. And he can share anything else about himself that he would like to share with our listening and viewing audience. Without any further ado, let's bring them both on. Welcome them to the platform today. Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto both of you. Can you hear me all right?
Salam, El-Hajj. Hi, Kim.
Hi, good evening. What a privilege to be on such an esteemed panel. Thank you. And with such a wonderful host. Thank you.
Let's begin. Since we don't have much on you, Brother Tayyar, just share a bit more about yourself, what your area of expertise is. You're a union leader. Exactly what is it you do? What do you do in South Africa, and what areas do you like to focus on with special attention?
Good evening to all the viewers and to you, El-Hajj. Such an honor to be in this platform tonight. Just a bit about myself. There isn't much to say about myself. I'm just a activist here in South Africa. I've been a trade unionist most part of my life. Since I basically got out of schooling and varsity, I went into trade unionism. I left trade unionism for a year or two. Then I went to the Middle East, did some work. I worked for government. In particular, I worked for the Department of Home Affairs. And I could not stomach the bureaucracy of government. I think I worked 1 year, 2 months, and I said, no, this is not for me. I went back into what I'm comfortable with, which is trade unionism. I prefer to be known as a social activist, serving our people in whichever way that I can, whether through the labor laws or through humanitarian initiatives. As a Muslim, obviously, that is part of our fitra to assist those that are in need. So basically, that is the long and short of it. There isn't much about me except that I'm just a servant leader, doing my best for my people and for my country.
Mm-hmm. Kim, how has you've already written one very thought-provoking book, and you're working on another. Through the lens of a white South African, how has South Africa changed since overcoming, at least theoretically, overcoming apartheid, and how has it remained the same?
Thank you. That's a very big question. It's probably the subject of an entire book, if not a series of books.
Tell me about it.
And actually, I would like to correct the way that I was introduced, because I always speak about myself, not as a white South African, but as a white settler, as a foreigner on this continent, as everyone is very much the same as we're seeing in apartheid Israel, where settlers have invaded the land of other people. So I'm always clear about that definition and query whether there is anything as a white South African, never mind white African. To me, that doesn't exist. And your question is very profound, because we speak about an anti-apartheid South Africa, a post-apartheid South Africa. But in many ways, in 1994, there was not much change. And all we saw was in this grand gesture and generous gesture from a Black government and Black South Africans. We spoke about this miracle nation and about the notion of reconciliation, as if reconciliation can ever take place between an oppressor and an oppressed group. But we were touted as a miracle nation. But apartheid continues, and economically, certainly. And that's the pain and tragedy of South Africa. Sadly, 30 years later, we are going backwards, because with the government of national unity, we've seen the oppressor even taking a stronger role in the political realm of South Africa. And we're going to see a backward movement in terms of its appearance and role on the world stage, as we're going to veer towards a Western perspective, and one that really supports and reinforces the white supremacy that is almost omnipotent in South Africa.
You know, I truly appreciate that very frank and honest response you gave to my my question. I'm sure that the question itself and your response to the question makes a lot of folk feel a bit uncomfortable on all sides. Brother Tahir, what are your thoughts on that same question? You know, South Africa yesterday versus South Africa today. What are your thoughts, brother? And also tell me, Brother Tahir, how were you, the tribe that you come from, how were you classified? Were you classified as colored or as Black South African? And you know, does that equation still factor into the South Africa of today? And if so, how so?
Yeah, thank you very much, El-Hajj, and to Kim. Kim is very dear to us in many respects. She's one of the few white people that exist in this world that are honest about the realities that we are facing as a nation. We really appreciate her. You know, I'm one of those who lived in both sides of the sandwich. I lived partly during the apartheid period, and I also lived post-apartheid. Now, one of the things that should be a determining factor between the two periods is that what has changed. Because a lot of people sacrificed their lives, a lot of people died for this pie in the sky, for that was supposed to be a just country for all its citizens. And all of that is on paper. You know, South Africa is one of those amazing countries where we are good when coming to articulating things on paper. Everything looks beautiful on paper in this country. But the reality of the situation is that as a person that is classified as Black nowadays, before 1994, I was classified as a kafir by the South African regime, the white regime, and some of them, they're still calling us that, by the way, even today in our country, and they get away with it. You can see that there's this systematic hatred that is inherent in some of these people, that according to them, we're not even supposed to be here. Never mind coexist or live together in the country. Despite the fact that our leaders since 1994 preached the message of tolerance, preached the message of brotherhood, the dream of the so-called rainbow nation. And because of the nature of South Africans, with the concept of Ubuntu. We gave this whole thing a chance to say that maybe as we grow, we transition as a country, things will get better. Unfortunately, things are not getting better. Now we are seeing the ugly head being bold. They are no longer doing these things behind closed doors now. They are doing them openly. And by so doing, basically, you are daring the majority of the citizens of this country to say that, you know what, despite the injustices, despite the treatment, hideous treatment that we made you go through, we are not done with you. And unfortunately, this is going to be met with a reaction. It's just a matter of time. Now, the question that one asks is that when that explosion happens, what will the world say? Because of clearly the world has taken a view about us as South Africans, that we can languish in poverty, unemployment, diseases, and all the worst that you can imagine. And still we must accommodate and accept racists, utter racists, to continue saying to us, you will continue living like animals the way you lived during apartheid and post-apartheid. And this is the situation that we need to navigate ourselves very carefully around it. Because of this country, South Africa, it is one of the most wonderful countries that you can ever imagine. We just need people who are willing to accept, one, we have wronged the majority of the people of South Africa. Secondly, we have stolen their minerals, we have stolen their land unjustly. And over the years, we have benefited immensely from that theft. Now it's time that we must give back what belongs to these people. And if they decide to share some of it with us, we will accept. However, unfortunately, El-Hajj, that is not the case. They are adamant about their position and they are willing to burn this country to ashes just to keep the proceeds of crime.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. And let me say, as an elder here in the United States who was deeply involved in the anti-apartheid struggle, the part of the struggle that took place here in the United States, I have been I've been profoundly disappointed that at the fact that, you know, what we expected to unfold, the tremendous high that many of us had here when apartheid theoretically fell in South Africa, and especially after, you know, the emergence, you know, of the late Nelson Mandela, may Allah be pleased with him, as, you know, the first Black president of a supposedly free South Africa. You know, it has weighed heavily on my heart and on the hearts of many others like me that more progress has not been made on that front. You know, the true liberation that we thought had come to South Africa is still being denied to this day. With that being said, inshallah ta'ala, I'd like for us to go to our first commercial break. And then after that break, you know, we're going to introduce a piece of video that I'd like the two of you to see and share your thoughts on. It's it's a thought-provoking piece of video that well, I can't wait to hear what your respective responses are going to be. Let's go to a commercial break, Brother Sadiq.
Searching for elite local and international investment and advisory services from an award-winning firm? Look no further than the Belmont Mayer Group, your gateway to unparalleled investment and wealth management. At Belmont Mayer, we believe in the art of wealth creation, a meticulous process fueled by our unwavering commitment to excellence. With a focus on providing elite alternative investments and quality advice, we also pride ourselves on maximizing value for our esteemed investors, as seen through our consistent outperformance. Your financial success is our top priority. Join us at Belmont Mayer and experience the difference firsthand. Ready to embark on a journey of greatness? Contact us today. Reach out to the Belmont Mayer Group on 078 786 1698. Call or WhatsApp or email us at info@belmontmayer.com. Elevate your financial future with Belmont Mayer, where every detail matters.
Imagine a world where every child feels loved, secure, and cared for. At Beit Halima Saadia Orphanage, we are not just providing a roof over their heads, we're giving orphan children a chance for a brighter future. For just 1,500 rands a month or 18,000 rands a year, you can sponsor an orphan and transform their life. Your contribution covers essentials like food, clothing, tuition, therapy, and more, ensuring they grow in a nurturing, supportive environment. Any donation is accepted as well as daily scheduled donations. EFT directly into our account. Beit Halima Saadia Orphanage, First National Bank, account number 6313-1080-078, branch code 250737, section 18A registered. Take this step today. Contact Sister Nazarene at 083-653-5669 or email info@bhscycc.co.za.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al-Beit Lodge, your true home away from home. Al-Beit is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al-Beit has to offer. For reservations, call 041-583-6415 or visit www.albeitlodge.co.za.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, buckies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Aman means safety.
The Aman School of Excellence in Finetown, South Africa, is securing the futures of underprivileged children by providing world-class education in a safe and nurturing environment. Sponsor a child for only 15,000 Rand per year or any amount. A quality education at Aman presents a pathway out of poverty and a brighter future for South Africa.
Africa Muslims Agency. Empowering, educating, inspiring.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Welcome back. We are today dealing with the topic Anti-Apartheid South Africa in the Line of Fire with two very special guests out of South Africa itself. There's a certain South African native who has, despite the fact that he is unelected, has been having an outsized role or impact in our U.S. political system. And the influence that he has been having has raised alarms in many corners of our social and political system. What I'd like for us at this point to do is to see a little piece of video that comes to us courtesy of MSNBC. It's a piece of video where the concerns of both the news anchor, and a U.S. politician are being expressed very publicly as a result of the impact that this recent election has had. Who has, this clique that has come into power, and again the role that a particular South African has been playing in this in the mix. Let's see that video, Brother Sadiq.
3 weeks into this new administration, and we are already facing what is rightfully being described as a constitutional crisis. It comes not from the man elected to sit behind the Resolute desk, but from the unelected one, who appears to be pulling all the strings, tech billionaire Elon Musk. It's happening in real time, thanks to Elon's made-up Department of Government Efficiency that he and a handful of young adults from his private companies have unleashed on this country with nearly unfettered access to any agency or database they choose to infiltrate. In this short time, we've seen them all but abolish the U.S. Agency for International Development, with plans to reduce its workforce from 5,000 to what's expected to be about 600. And it's being done without congressional authority, which is required given that it was Congress that passed the law that formally established the agency. Of course, this is just the start. With little pushback, Musk and his minions are gaining access to more and more U.S. government agencies every day. Just today, Trump said he instructed Musk to check out the Pentagon. And those people gaining access to the most sensitive systems are not the best and the brightest. Yesterday, one of Elon's little henchmen resigned from Doge after his now deleted racist social media posts resurfaced. According to the Wall Street Journal, the posts from 25-year-old Marco Elez included such gems as, "Just for the record, I was racist before it was cool. You could not pay me to marry outside of my ethnicity," and "normalize Indian hate." And this morning, right on cue, Vice President James David Vance said Elez should be brought back onto the team, posting, "I don't think stupid social media activity should ruin a kid's life." Oh, okay, so now he's just a kid who was given direct access to Treasury Department systems responsible for nearly every single payment made by the U.S. government, including Social Security checks that people rely on. A kid? I thought they were highly trained professionals, man, not kids. To no one's surprise, Elon jumped on his personal version of Truth Social and tweeted in agreement with JD and announced Elez's triumphant return this afternoon. This after spending much of yesterday joking with his Twitter stands about another one of his junior henchmen who on his LinkedIn went by the name Big Balls and who also had access to millions of Americans' personal data. The absolute unseriousness of these people stands in stark contrast to the dead seriousness of what they're doing to our country and the many unknowns about what they could be doing with our data. Meanwhile, the acting U.S. Attorney for D.C., Ed Martin, who earlier this week said he would pursue legal action against anyone who threatens any Doge employees, something that he offered no evidence has happened, is now saying that he is beginning an inquiry into those supposed threats after a referral from Elon Musk, who apparently now, in addition to wielding the power afforded to Congress in the Constitution, also has the power to order federal criminal investigations. Martin wrote directly to Elon, We will investigate them, and we will chase them to the end of the earth to hold them accountable. We will not rest or cease in this. No one should abuse American taxpayer dollars, nor American taxpayer workers. Are these American taxpayer workers? I don't know about that. We don't have any evidence of that. And by the way, we've heard no such pledge from Martin after a conservative website funded by the Heritage Foundation published what it called a DEI watch list with the names, photos, and identifying information of federal health workers involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and that at one point described them as targets. Apparently, in Elon and Don's America, the federal government is no longer here to protect you. It is here for one purpose and one purpose only: to empower and protect Elon Musk and his friends. Joining me now is Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee. I do want to start with that threat from Mr. Martin. Your thoughts on that? He has not offered any evidence that anything has happened other than these names being published by Wired and other journalists. So whatever could he mean by pursuing these so-called threats? He's not given any evidence of it, and no one should threaten anyone. Let's just be clear about that. What do you make of his threats?
I mean, he didn't utter a peep when Enrique Tarrio, recently pardoned, issued a social media statement on X, I believe, with the name of the female FBI agent who he accuses of various nefarious crimes, and says that she should be arrested and put in jail, and bringing all kinds of social pressure on her. He's not done anything to try to insulate the FBI agents who've come under attack by all of the freed Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and 3%ers and violent insurrectionists. So that guy is a J6 enthusiast. He's a J6 lawyer, and he's doing everything in his power to exact retaliation against the federal prosecutors and the FBI agents and the cops who simply did their jobs for America.
You know, I still recall, and it still sears in my mind, Ruby Freeman and Shay Ma saying that you can't describe the feeling of your federal government coming after you and training the entire awesome power of the White House on you as just an individual person. What we have now is the U.S. Attorney from Washington, as well as the Heritage Foundation, through its donation to this watch list group. You know, the people on that list, they put their faces in there, they put their identifying information. Some of them have gotten unsolicited pizza delivery so that people letting them know they know where they live. People have gotten swatted. I don't hear any impetus from this federal government under the Trump administration to protect any American who, as you said, are being threatened. And they are also demanding to know the identities of these FBI agents, as you just said. And who knows whether those will just wind up in the hands of Elon Musk, who seems to think this is all hilarious. At this point, what protection do ordinary Americans who are not Trumpers, what protection do we have at all?
Well, the Association of FBI Agents went to court yesterday to try to protect not hundreds but thousands of FBI agents who are within the scopes of Donald Trump and his team of people trying to whitewash January 6th. They consider it essential to completely rewrite the story of what happened and turn these criminals, who they called political prisoners and hostages, into heroes and patriots, and then turn the people who enforced the law to defend the democracy, including cops who were wounded and injured and hospitalized, turn them into the villains of the story. It's just so outrageous. And, you know, they have spent the last few years talking about the weaponization of government without any evidence for it, all obviously to prepare for their weaponization of the government to make people think that this is normal.
It's kind of bizarre watching our country sort of descend into this sort of, you know, what in the past would have been called sort of third world sort of junta behavior, but it is happening in real time. And I will note that Marvin Dunn, Marvin Dunn, the former police officer Dunn, not Marvin Dunn as another Dunn, was just confronted by one of these J6ers in the street, Harry Dunn, in the streets of D.C. You know, by one of them. But anyway, let me move on to the actual thing. I think that people are really freaking out and terrified about. These unelected people, they're not government employees. Nobody knows, you know, Doge doesn't exist. It isn't real. They now have access to maybe hundreds of millions of people's data. the Congress passed a law trying to stop TikTok from operating out of fear that the Chinese government would get Americans' data through TikTok. This is now a group of people, some of whom have expressed openly racist views, that are particularized against certain communities, or who are just unserious in some of the goofs they've done online, don't seem very serious people. They can do whatever they want with this data. By the time the courts adjudicate this, won't it be too late? Won't they maybe have already downloaded it and repurposed it for whatever?
Well, that's why we need the courts to move so quickly and to enjoin any further leakage or any corruption and misuse of this data while we can. And it may be getting late. I mean, you mentioned the Chinese government, and Elon Musk is, of course, very much in bed with the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party. So if they want any of this data, they've got a very clear channel by which they can get it. And it's an absolute violation of the Privacy Act and a whole bunch of other federal laws that are being violated. But Elon Musk has been sending his juvenile fascist night crew to federal agencies and departments throughout Washington, including coming into my district, to NOAA, to NIH, the FDA, in order to get not just all the financial records, but personnel records at NIH, patient records, records from various studies and various grants. So they want to run roughshod over the entire legal infrastructure protecting the privacy rights of the people, all for their own purposes, which may be governmental, they may be corporate, they may be private, they may be political. And right now, all we've got is the opportunity for courts to step in to say that this data must be returned to the government, and we've got to end this raid on it by Elon Musk.
I want to just note for the audience that Donald Trump has announced today that he's going to fire some January 6th investigators, calling them, some of them, corrupt. You responded actually to this normalized Indian hate guy. And it's sweet that you don't want to ruin a kid's life, saying to J.D. Vance something to bear in mind next time you oppose gun safety laws. But does that mean that this kid should have access to private data of tens of millions of Americans? And I will note one more thing just for the audience. The New York Times is reporting that the Treasury Department has installed an ally of Elon Musk in a key position overseeing the nation's payment system, replacing a career civil servant who had resisted granting Mr. Musk's cost-cutting team access to payment data. The payment data seems particularly important and particularly sensitive. By the time, again, if the Supreme Court gets this case, and I have no faith, I'm being honest, that John Roberts won't just enshrine this under law and say that Donald Trump does have the unitary authority to spend America's money and it's not Congress. By the time it gets there, again, won't it be too late? They have the payment system. They've got the normalized Indian hate guys back on the job. Can we even stop this?
Well, I mean, speed is of the essence here, for the reasons you're saying, Joy. It is an overwhelming amount of information about a huge number of people. And so if the courts move with dispatch, they might be able to prevent a lot of damage from being inflicted. But nobody should normalize what's going on here.
Now, that was a long clip, but we wanted to show it in its entirety, almost 12 minutes in length, because it really underscores how grave the situation is in the opinion of many citizens in this country, including myself. I mean, Elon Musk is an unelected public official, unelected, and yet he has this enormous influence on the person who is viewed by many around the world as the most powerful political figure in the world, the President of the United States. Elon Musk is a white South African. I can't help but wonder, what are the views that are being expressed by by South Africans on the enormous influence that this person has here in the U.S. and how that influence may redound in South Africa itself. Let's begin with you, Kim. Your thoughts on Elon Musk and his outsized influence.
Well, thank you for actually sharing that very revealing video with us. And it almost feels like there's a horror movie playing out in real time, a horror movie that we didn't think would be a real life plot, but it seems to be. And certainly the White House has become the White House, actually more so than perhaps in its history, recent history. And sadly, the thing is that Elon Musk doesn't necessarily not represent the views of most white South Africans who remain very fixed on the myth that white is great. And what we see is that he has given refugee status to a band of Afrikaners in South Africa who are claiming that they are being disadvantaged. And yesterday we've had great scenes in South Africa of these, what we call Boers, white South Africans, Afrikaners, having signs that says, make South Africa great, you know, replicating what we're seeing in the American situation. So we're seeing a wave of white supremacy and fascism storm into the world, perhaps more overt than it's been for a while. So I think in that respect, going back to your question directly, is that Elon Musk has become the poster boy of white supremacy, and he's really causing great damage. The fact that this is being allowed in what we call a modern day democracy and an era of civilization is very, very worrying. But we must also understand in the world dynamics, we're seeing some very worrying trends. As I said, an emergence of right-wing governments, of the fact that a real-life genocide can play out before our eyes and we look away. And the question we have to ask about Elon Musk is that we are allowing this man to play such a critical role. And with it, he can take down the values not only of what America holds great, the real democratic views, not the white is right approach. But we're watching this, we're witnessing it. And the question is, what is the world going to do about this? I think it's extremely troubling. He's causing disruptions throughout what he's doing. And just in conclusion, the fact that he's basing a lot of what he's doing, his actions, on fake news and propaganda is causing untold damage that I think is going to reverberate for many years to come. And, you know, if you are going to be welcoming any of these conservative whites into America, good luck to you. We don't want them in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Brother Sahir, your thoughts, brother.
Yeah, well, I think this is the statement that says chickens coming home to roost a reality. You know, the United States now is naked, is exposed. Once mighty nation is now right at the bottom of the barrel insofar as respect across the globe. Now, we must also appreciate the fact that Elon has invested in what he's getting now. He invested immensely, a lot of monies in order for him to be where he is. And obviously, he wants to recoup whatever that he invested, and he will surely do that. But the sad thing about this is that the biggest so-called democracy in the world is now a shameful nation in the eyes of many people. And it has taken a position that is only going to affect ordinary Americans. Ordinary Americans will never, or America in itself will never recover from this kind of chaos that we are seeing now. And you must remember this is only the beginning. We don't know what these people are up to in the coming year or two or so. So things can get worse than the way they are. But if you look at the background of Ellen is a fascist, is a racist. In fact, he went to school down the road from where I am now. And even his family, they a bunch of racists. So he's just playing out who he is. The only difference between America and South Africa is the fact that Americans seem to take rich people in high esteem because apparently he's the richest man in the world. So because of that, he's seen as untouchable. But you know, in our country, El-Hajj, you can be a billionaire, but an ordinary South African can come and tell you to go to hell with your billions. Because of money is not necessarily what determines our views and how we treat other people. You must ask our president. He's alleged to be a billionaire as well. However, ordinary South Africans, they take him on because of we have at least somewhat a real democracy in the country where we can speak freely to power and challenge whatever that we believe is wrong. But in this particular case, you know, the issue here is that there is no way that America, with all the capabilities that they have, are unaware that what has been peddled about South Africa is not true. They know it's not true, but they just don't care. The issue here is that South Africa dared to do what the world was afraid to do for a very long time. The mere fact that we challenged the great evil, the state of Israel, that was unheard of, and that they are willing to do everything that we are punished so that no one can ever try to do that. But they miscalculated one thing about us. We are a very resilient nation. And one thing about us, the issue of justice is a cornerstone of who we are. No matter what they do, whether they take away the grants that they are giving us, whether they threaten us with sanctions, whether they create false narratives about us, is not going to change who we are. Israel will remain evil, will continue being evil in our eyes, and will continue taking on the Zionists and all those who support them. Now, as for this band of bandits, these Afrikaners in this country, who are making all this noise, lying about what is happening in this country. Since the advent of democracy, El-Hajj, not a single hectare of land was taken from Afrikaners. Not one. And they know it. But the mere fact that they are able to go out and lie that Afrikaners are dying in their numbers, when we know that 87% and more of every murder that happens in this country is black people. The white people who die out of crime, they constitute less than 1%. And yet they want to create this narrative because of this is what white supremacy is. White blood is more important than a million blood of black people to them. And I think us as a nation, we need to reach a point that in as much as we are a constitutional state and we revere our constitution, we cannot allow people to use this constitution to go and lie and create havoc for our country, because a lot of people are going to suffer, are going to die because of the lies that they've peddled. And it is something that this government need to take it on to say that this band of bandits, AfriForum and Solidarity, needs to be dealt with, and an example must be made that this democracy must be protected, and we are not going to allow people to lie in order for them to push their wicked agendas.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you mentioned the role that South Africa has been playing in striving to the best of its ability to hold the apartheid Zionist state of Israel accountable, at least in the court of public opinion, for what it has been doing. I recall years ago being in the company. He was on a visit here to one of the oldest religious institutions in the United States. It was either a 2 or 3 day conference in Boston at the Old South Church. He was the keynote speaker, the late Reverend Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And I remember in his speech, there were Zionists, Christian and Jewish Zionists and their blind following supporters in Boston that organized a massive demonstration outside the church where this conference was held. And I remember Desmond Tutu in his remarks making a comparison. He said that what has been taking place in Palestine is even greater than, you know, what happened to us in South Africa. It's even worse. And then I've also heard the late Nelson Mandela also make an observation very similar to that of Desmond Tutu. With that being said, the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice, but especially the International Criminal Court, has really distinguished itself on the international scene by taking the positions that it has taken, courageously taken, you know, in an attempt to hold this apartheid regime and by extension, its frontline supporters at least accountable in the court of public opinion. Kim, what are your thoughts on what the ICC and ICJ have been doing and the global community's response to it? And I would also like to hear what the response of the non-Black South African community has been to what the ICC has been doing over the past year.
Well, first of all, I think it's commendable that the South African government has taken such a strong stance, and we have had the courage to stand up against an apartheid regime, actually. And certainly that has resembled and even been far worse than the apartheid regime. And that's been confirmed by many Black South Africans and government ministers who have been into Gaza and seen the absolute devastation and abuse of human rights by the apartheid Israel regime. So what I've personally felt is that we've been quite disappointed by the response of the ICC and ICJ, because they've proved to be toothless bodies in the under the firm grip of the United States, and that we are still in this terrible state, and that Gaza has been held captive not only for the last 2 years, but for the last 7 generations, decades, is a very serious blight on humanity as a whole. What I like particularly about the South African application was that it details the horrors of 70 years of abuse by the Israeli entity. And its power actually lies more than than in the recent depiction. But we would be naive to think that the ICJ and ICC would act with courage. My comment on the South African public, those that have actually stand for justice, have stood very firmly for the people of Palestine, and will continue to do that, no matter what sanctions or punitive measures are directed against the country. But we have a very strong Zionist lobby in South Africa that controls a lot of the political entities that are now part of the government of national unity. So I've been impressed that the ANC government to date hasn't softened its approach. And let's hope that the president, when he says, I will not be bullied, he means that. My final note on this is that we have to ask, though, is the South African government that serious about helping the people of Palestine? Because if it was, it would have implemented the recommendation by the economic freedom fighters to shut down the Israeli embassy. And this is the second time in Parliament last week that the EFF has raised this. So I think we have to say the South African government needs to take a step further. My suggestion would be that we should be imposing sanctions on the apartheid regime in the same way that we are free today because of international pressure largely. We should also be taking it a step further. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Brother Tyre, your thoughts on that same question, brother?
Absolutely. I fully agree with what Kim is saying. In as much as we appreciate our government and what they have done thus far, I think domestically there's more that can be done. But I think the hands of our president and the ANC are tied now because of now they are in this marriage of convenience with the enemies of the people, the very same people who support the state of Israel, and they are not hiding it. They've made it very clear that they are pro the state of Israel. Now, the question that one asks is that what is it that really makes these people so afraid to say that, truly speaking, they don't need a government of national unity that includes the DA? They don't. There is the EF, there's the MK party that can give them a 2/3 majority that we can really pass a law that will take this land by force. Because of this law that the president has signed, it's nothing new. Basically, he was trying to clarify what Section 25 is trying to do. It's not saying anything new, absolutely. But the fact of the matter is that we are running out of patience as a people, as a country, to say that this hanging issue has been going on for far too long. But clearly, the Zionist lobby, like Kim has said, are really in charge. They are really the ones who are pulling the strings. And they have most of the leaders in some of these political parties, including the black political parties, and in their own pockets. And they know a lot about them. And so they are scared. So they tread very carefully in terms of how they deal with real issues. It's just that the issue of Palestine, ANC, unfortunately, there's nothing they can do. They will have to stack it out until the end on that one, because of this is not only about them, it's about the South Africans who really believe in the struggle for the emancipation of Palestine. So we need to start really putting pressure on the ANC to say that you don't need the DA. In fact, the DA is delaying the inevitable, because at the end of the day, in this 5 years is going to come to an end. And when it does, a new government is going to come in. Their hope is that this coalition governments will continue in perpetuity, because of then they know that there will never be one party that is strong enough to change any laws in this country. And the Zionists in particular have invested a lot of money to make sure that they disempower the African National Congress in order for them to be able to basically put them under a leash like they are now. However, this is not about them. It's about the views of ordinary South Africans, people like me and Kim, who are on the ground, who are seeing all these wrongdoings, and we are saying that enough is enough. Something needs to give. It's just a matter of when.
Enough is enough. I knew that this hour was going to go fast. Unfortunately, we have to bring this conversation to a close, but I'm going to have both of you on. We're going to invite both of you back again. I'm hoping you're going to be able to join us for a follow-up to this conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. I kind of regret now the length of that video clip that we played because it took away some of the time for some more conversation. But like I said, we're going to have you back, and so thank you so much. We want to end today's conversation as we normally do with the verse from Surah Al-Asr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr. Innal insana lafi kusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amalu salihati. Wa tawassaw bil haqq. Wa tawassaw bis sabr. Which means, in the translation of the meaning, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, by the token of time through the ages, surely humanity is in loss, except those who believe and do good, and exhort one another to truth, and exhort one another to patiently persevere. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum.